Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our path to finding the perfect car. Today we're standing here next to a little unicorn, the Audi RS4 B5 that Trend Cars here in Stockholm, Sweden were nice enough to let us use for today's episode. A lot of people will argue that back in the days when the German engineers were superior, Mercedes and BMW were ahead of Audi. Is this the model that let Audi compete with BMW and Mercedes? Back in the days, German engineering was superior, but most of the people had their focus on BMW and Mercedes, and Audi never really got the attention that they wanted. So back in the early 90s, they made the Audi RS2. It only came as a wagon, and they only made about 3,000 cars. And the follow-up to the Audi RS2 was this, and they only made about 6,000 of them. To the average Joe, this might look like your ordinary Audi A4. But there are a few things that gives the RS model away. As a tribute to the Sport Quattro, they gave the rear bumper 3 ventilation holes. They also made the body way wider over the arches, over the rear doors, and to accommodate for the wide body, they gave it bigger side skirts. Other subtle changes that were made to the RS model are the silver mirrors, wide fenders, and a wider front bumper to match. And they also gave the front bumper gills, and yes, they are functional. The production line of these cars were from 1999 to 2001. And in 1998, Audi owned Cosworth. So this engine was produced at Cosworth division. Under the hood, we have a 2.7 liter twin turbo V6 engine. And this model was only available with a 6-speed gearbox and the notorious Quattro system. This thing made 381 horsepower and 440 Newton meters of torque, which was a lot back then, and it still is today. I've always wanted to test drive one of these cars, and I'm curious to find out if this one is going to impress me more than a BMW or a Mercedes. Downshifting in this and flooring it gives... Yep, ladies and gentlemen, it is pretty quick. I love stick shift cars, and this is actually really what you want in a performance wagon, because this one in automatic would take away most of the fun. I have come to realize that this car is pretty heavy, but it still moves. I actually like the intake sound and the exhaust sound all combined. And driving a stick is what I like to do. And it feels like it handles pretty well too. It's taking turns, it really follows the road very well. It doesn't feel unbalanced. It might be a little bit heavy up front. I couldn't tell, I haven't weighted, but overall it just feels really solid. And the feeling that you get driving a stick, like again, this, you would take away so much joy and fun out of this car if this was an automatic. And I understand Audi or just wanted to make this a stick shift, and I completely agree, because it is phenomenal. Only thing with this one in particular is that it is on coilovers, so it is pretty stiff, which also benefits the handling a little bit, I feel like, because since this is a heavy car once again, and now it's been stiffened up a little bit, I haven't driven any other, this is my first, so I can only compare it to this one and this one only, but it feels like in this case, could actually be helping. Sitting in this car, driving down the country road, these seats are comfortable. They're Recaro seats with RS4 imprinted in the leather. They look nice, they're very bolstered up and keep you in place while driving. It also feels like it doesn't have a lot of options and extras, but it feels like it could be just enough. I like the 3-spoke wheel, no buttons, just a pure steering wheel that gives you kind of like a racing feel to it. Stick shift driving a wagon is weird and nice at the same time, because usually when there's stick shifts in wagons, they're usually not fast, but this one is. You got great what? I did not expect all that low end torque. Now, this is kind of impressive. My thoughts on the Audis are still, Audi made the Sport Quattro and the other rally cars, and they developed this Quattro system, which is their all-wheel drive, that is notorious worldwide today. Was this supposed to be some sort of symbol towards the rally scene? Or is this iconic or inspired by rally cars? Because you have the all-wheel drive system. It is a stick shift. It feels like it turns very well coming into turns. And it feels like they put a lot of effort in trying to make the handling good. But is it really a rally/sports wagon, or is it more of like your ordinary daily, which you should benefit from if you live in a country like this, like Sweden, where we have 4 seasons and a lot of snow? I am not an Audi guy, but I do appreciate and like their Quattro systems. I did own a Audi RS6 C6 V10 twin turbo, and it wasn't really because it was an Audi. It was more because I liked the RS6 and it impressed me a lot. So my question with this car is still, why would I buy this if I was born earlier and had the money back in the day over a BMW M5 or a Mercedes AMG? Think of this car as this. It feels like driving a Audi A4 that's been restored and has new bushings, everything just feels very solid, and then you have stiffer suspension, a lot better brakes, and a lot better handling overall. And it's been taking steroids for the last couple of years because it is way faster than your average Audi A4. It feels like a little go-kart because it doesn't feel as heavy as it is. According to our numbers, this one is supposed to weigh 1,700 kilograms, which is a lot. But it doesn't feel like 1,700 kilograms. It feels like 1,300. I honestly like this. I like the nostalgic looks. I like the interior. It's old in a good way. And I definitely like the drive feeling you get. Before we continue, guys, don't forget the personal discount code in the description, AlexSystem20 for 20% off. Moving on to the interior of the RS4. I actually like the seats a lot. They're Recaro seats with the RS4 logo imprinted in the seat, and it feels like the leather is of great quality. I like the 3-spoke steering wheel. I love the badging, and it doesn't have all the buttons and everything, but I kind of like that and prefer that because it gives you a racing feeling. I like the cluster, well designed. It's still old and could have been used in the previous models, which is not bad, but they could have also updated it. I like the badging in the cluster. I like the shifter and how everything looks here, but it doesn't have all the extras. It's got no CD radio, and this one concerns me a little bit. The cup holder that they placed right above the stereo, so for whenever you are spilling your drinks, you mess up the audio. With that in mind, I'm giving this interior 5 out of 10 points, but as we're in here, we're also going to move on to comfort. It feels very comfy in here. It is not noisy. This one in particular is a little bit stiff, but then again, this one is on different suspension. I'm giving this 7 out of 10 points in comfort. which is good for being a performance wagon. And we're also going to move on to the exterior of the RS4. I am honestly a big wagon fan, so this one is already up there. I like the front bumper and how it matches the wide front fenders. Loving the wheels and the gills in the front. Silver mirrors that shows that this is a Audi RS model. And thank you, Audi, so much for doing what BMW couldn't do back in the days by giving the rear of the car a wider look too. And they also made it match with the side skirts and the wider rear door. With that in mind, I'm giving this one 8.5 points out of 10. So how well does the Audi RS4 handle? Well, it is a heavy car, the brakes are good, and it is just stiff enough. It feels like the steering is very direct and it follows the road pretty well. But for my points and my preference, it is still a little bit too heavy. So with that in mind, I'm giving this 7 out of 10 points in handling. Moving on to the performance of the car. Well, you got great low-end torque. You got decent high-end torque, but you only in today's age have 381 horsepower in a very heavy car, which is also a stick shift. I'm giving this Audi, unfortunately, a 5 out of 10 points on performance. So how tunable is the Audi RS4? Well, it's got a twin turbo setup from the get-go, so you don't need to do all that. But we do know that the bottom end of these engines aren't really the strongest. So you can tune it, but only to a certain level before you have to install forged internals. With that in mind, I'm giving this 6.5 out of 10 points. And while we're at it, we're gonna move on to aftermarket support. They only made 6,000 of these RS4s, which makes it a little bit difficult when you need OEM parts. You can get them, but they're gonna cost you. And if you don't wanna pay the price, you can get aftermarket, but are they all that great? That is the question. And with that in mind, I'm giving this 5 out of 10 points. While we're back here, we're gonna move on to exhaust and engine sounds. It doesn't really sound like a V6 to me. It almost feels and sounds like a Audi 5-cylinder. I like it, but it could be a little bit louder. Intake sound is good, exhaust sound a little bit too quiet for my taste. Let me give you a little rev so you know what I'm talking about. It could be a little bit louder. With that in mind, I'm giving this 6 out of 10 points on exhaust and engine sound. And we're gonna move over to miles per gallon. How much fun is the Audi RS4? It is heavy, but it handles good, brakes are nice, and it gives you this very nostalgic feeling of driving an old 90s, I would want to say a 90s car. With that in mind, this gets 7.5 points in miles per gallon. Our last criteria is going to be bang for the buck. We know that these cars are very pricey today. They used to be a little bit cheaper than they are now. They started going up in price, and as always, supply and demand. This one in particular is worth around $40,000, 40,000 euros, which is 400,000 Swedish crowns. And to me, it doesn't really feel like you're getting all that for that much money since it is an older car. But sure, if you love these old nostalgic ones, this is pretty much your pick. But my preference for me, this one gets 4 out of 10 points in bang for the buck because it is a little bit pricey for me. To wrap it up, guys, this Audi gets 61.5 points. And I want to thank you so much for watching. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and like and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any other videos. We will see you in the next.